Hello everyone, welcome to the second part or the second video of the chapter The Making of a Global World. In this section, as stated earlier, we will be dealing with the pre-modern world and again we'll be shifting to other sections in the subsequent videos. Today we are living in an interconnected world. This interconnection happened because of cultural amalgamation. Many factors were responsible for this. And the making of a global world was not an overnight process. It took ages to form this cultural amalgamation or the interlinking of the world. Today, whatever we are using in our day to day life comes to us from various places and from different parts of the world. We are not able to imagine today that once these things were not even known to us. So, how this happened? Let us concentrate on this. Actually, the making of a global world has a long history, and it happened because people traveled from one place to other. Now, they traveled for trade, they even traveled for migration in search of work, and also the movement of capital happened. Wherever the people found something interesting or which satiated their desires, they tried to stay there. There were various reasons for traveling. From ancient times, travelers, traders, priests, and pilgrims traveled vast distances for knowledge, for opportunity, and for spiritual fulfillment, or to escape persecution. Now, why are we traveling today? Basically, if you see, we are also traveling for the same factors. We are going from place to place in search of new or better fortunes for us, for trade, for visiting places which are important for us from spiritual point of view. We are also going to meet our relatives or friends. So this interaction that happened from ancient times actually brought the world closer and closer. But these travels had both positive and negative aspects. So let us concentrate on positive aspects. It led to transfer of goods, money, values, skills, ideas, and inventions. So, while people traveled from one place to another, they carried all these things knowingly and unknowingly at times to new areas wherever they went. And these ideas were shared, which led to enrichment and better knowledge for everyone who was in connection. But always these travels did not have positive aspects. There were negative aspects as well. And the biggest negative aspect was that with people, even the germs and diseases also traveled. This was basically unknown to people who were traveling, but with them they carried these germs and diseases and they introduced it to the areas that they went. It is now very easy for you to understand because today you are living in a part of the world, in a period of the world where coronavirus is becoming very popular. And you know the spread of this virus happened only because of traveling. Now, this traveling or interlinking or interconnection can be traced as back as early as to 3000 BC, where from Indus Valley civilization the connection was established with the present day West Asia. And this connection was basically with the purpose of trade. There is another example which shows that interconnection started happening from very early times. Cowries, which is known as cowrie in Hindi, is a form of seashells and is used as a form of currency,
traveled from Maldives and were found in China and East Africa. The next subject in this part is the Silk Routes. The map here shows the entire Silk Route, and pay attention that it starts from China, connects various parts of the world, and reaches up to Europe, even passing through India. These Silk Routes were an important aspect for exchange of goods, ideas, and various other things. It is important to note here that why these routes, which started from China and went up to Europe, are known as Silk Routes. It was mainly because the main item of trade was silk, which was carried from China to different parts of the world. The Silk Roads existed much before the Christian era and can be traced almost up to 15th century. Now in this Silk Road many items were carried, like from China, the Chinese pottery and the Chinese silk was carried, textile and spices from India, and also from Southeast Asia. These were carried to Europe, and in return, precious metals like gold and silver flowed from Europe to Asia. As I told you earlier, that these Silk Roads were not only routes of exchange of materials, but it was also routes of exchange of many ideas, and exchanges of different kinds took place. So we can see here that cultural exchange also happened through these Silk Routes. How this happened? Actually, Christian missionaries traveled from this route to Asia, as did the early Muslim preachers who followed the Christian missionaries, or it can be said that after them, a few centuries later, Muslim preachers also reached different parts of the world through this route. Again, Buddhism emerged from eastern India and spread to different directions through these routes. Many Buddhist priests in different parts of the Europe came to India through these routes just to know more about Buddhism and to enrich their knowledge about Buddhism. Now pay attention on this map of Silk Routes once again. Though historians have traced many Silk Routes from very ancient period, this map actually shows exactly the bifurcations of the Silk Routes. The points marked in red were the places where the trader exchanged their goods with one another, and in fact, they sold their goods and took over the goods of that local place and carried back home all these goods. Now you see that from China, one route is linking to Persia, then again to Africa and Europe. Another you find that it is touching India and again crossing through Arabia and then touching Egypt and going to Europe. We will now deal with the importance of food and how food traveled from one place to another and became an integral part of our daily life. Okay, this is one section which is easiest to memorize. Why? Can you tell me? Yes, of course, it is because that food is loved by everyone and it becomes very easy to memorize anything which is related to food. Can you ever imagine that the humble potatoes, the soya, the groundnuts, the tomatoes, or the chilies, which is an integral part of our food these days, were once not known to us? In fact, it was introduced from other parts of the world. So, food traveled from one place to another and assumed new names. Though, can you imagine that it was medium of cultural exchange. Traders and travelers introduced new crops to the lands they traveled, and it is very common. Why, can you tell me? Yes, today also, when we travel from one place to another, we tend to carry things or the food items which we love a lot because we feel that in the new land that we are going, maybe these food items will not be available. So that happened in those days as well. The traders and travelers took these food items to distant areas and introduced these food items to that place, enriching the food habits of the local people. The food stuff in different parts of the world might have a common origin then. Now, you won't believe that noodles traveled from China and Europe. It came to be known as spaghetti. Secondly, Arab travelers also took pasta to 5th century Sicily, which is a small island of Italy. So, common foods that we are using today, like potatoes, soya bean, groundnuts, maize, tomatoes, chilies, were introduced in Europe and Asia after Christopher Columbus accidentally discovered America.
Now, food has always not been a matter of pleasure. In fact, at times it was also a matter of pain, like we see the case of Irish potato famine. In Ireland, the poor peasants became so much dependent on the new crop of potato that was introduced there that actually they found a complete meal in the potato. Now, in the mid 1840s, when the crop of potato failed in that area because of some disease, these poor peasants actually started dying, and in fact, thousands of people died of starvation there.
This is another interesting subsection of this chapter, and it deals with conquest, disease, and trade. I think you people are much enriched and much empowered to understand this section. Can you tell me why? Because every day you are seeing how these diseases actually are traveling from one place of the world to another. This is, in fact, the period of coronavirus, and you can very well understand that this might have happened in the earlier period as well. Before its discovery, America was in fact cut off from the rest of the world for centuries. But from 16th century onwards, we find that America's vast lands, its abundant crops, its minerals, and other raw materials began to transform trade and lives everywhere in the world. This had its own positive and negative impacts. Now, first, we will deal with the positive impact. The best impact was that the precious metals like silver from mines located in the present day Peru and Mexico enhanced Europe's wealth and financed its trade with Asia because Europe could lay its hand on these wealth and the silver of these areas. But it always did not have positive impact. It had its own negative impact as well. By mid 16th century, in fact, Portuguese and Spanish conquest and colonization of America happened because of germs such as smallpox. Can you believe this? The people who had come from Portugal and Spain actually carried these germs of smallpox to America, and American inhabitants who were not immune to these diseases caught these diseases. It killed many of the Americans, paving the way for their conquest. These smallpox diseases, in fact, became a major source of conquest and colonization of America. Again, another interesting factor here is that thousands of people fled from Europe to America. And why did they do so? Mainly because of poverty, hunger, diseases, religious conflicts, persecution, and it happened till the 19th century. By 18th century in America, slaves captured from Africa worked on cotton and sugar plantations. And these plantations actually had items for European markets, which were offering very good opportunities to migrants from Europe. Now, till 18th century, China and India were among world's richest countries. They had a big say in the trade of the world. However, from 15th century, China restricted its overseas contacts because of some unknown reasons. This laying back of China's tendencies actually was responsible for raising the importance of America. And now the center of trade moved westwards, Europe now becoming the main center of world trade.